Stolen Legacy, Part 3. Socrates was born in Athens in the year 469 BC. He was the son of Sophronicus, a sculptor, a Phanerite, a midwife. Very little is known about his early years, but we are told that he was brought up in the profession of his father, and that he called himself not only a pupil of Prodicus and Aspasa, but also a self-taught philosopher. According to Xenophon and the Symposium, up to the age of 40, his life appears to be a complete blank. The first mention being made of him when he served as an ordinary soldier in the sieges of Potidaea and Delium between 432 through 429 BC, the trial and death of Socrates, Church, page 15 of Introduction. Socrates did not accept fees for what he taught, and he became so poor that his wife became very dissatisfied with their domestic conditions. He believed that he possessed a divine something, a divine voice which advised and guided him in the great crisis of his life. His condemnation and death in 399 BC, after the accustomed speeches of the accusers, Miletus, Anytus, and Lycon, Socrates followed his defense, at the conclusion of which the judges voted 281 to 220, and Socrates was condemned to death. As a parting word, he addressed himself both to those who voted against him and those who voted in his favor. In the case of the former, he rebuked them by predicting that evil would befall them in consequence of their crime and condemning him. In the case of the latter, he not only consoled them with the assurance that no evil could come to a good man, either in life or in death, but also expressed to them his idea about immortality. Death is either an eternal and dreamless sleep, wherein there is no sensation at all, or it is a journey to another and a better world, where are the famous men of old. Whichever alternative be true, death is not an evil, but a good. His death is willed by the gods, and he is content. His death was delayed through a state of religious ceremonial, and he remained in the prison for 30 days. We are told that during that time, he was visited by friends who consisted of the inner circle, and also his wife. That was the occasion of his discourse concerning the immortality of souls, that he could have escaped from death if he wished, because his friends visited him before daybreak and offered to set him free. But he refused the offer. Accordingly, Socrates drank the hemlock and died. Crito, on the night before of his death of Socrates, while he was in prison, on behalf of the company of visitors, made a final appeal to him to permit them to secure his escape, as spoke as follows: "O my Socrates, I beseech you for the last time to listen to me and save yourself, for to me your death would be more than a single disaster. Not only shall I lose a friend like of whom I shall never find again, but many persons who do not know you and me well will think that I might have saved you, if I had been willing to spend money that I neglected to do so, and that character could be more disgraceful than the character of caring more for money than one own friend. The world will never believe that we were anxious to save you, but that you yourself refused to escape. Tell me this, Socrates, surely you are not anxious about me and your other friends, and afraid, unless if you escape, the informers should say that we stole you away, and get us in trouble, and involve us in a great deal of expense, or perhaps in the loss of all our property, and it may be, bring some other punishment upon us. Besides, if you have any fear of that kind, dismiss it. For of course we are bound to run those risks, and still greater risk than those if necessary in saving you. So do not, I beseech you, refuse to listen to me. Then Socrates replied, I am anxious about that, Crito, and much besides. And Crito continued the appeal. Then have no fear on that score. There are men who, for no very large sum, are ready to bring you out of prison into safety, and then, these informers are cheaply bought, and there will be no need to spend much on them. My fortune is at your disposal, and I think that it is sufficient. And if you have any feeling about making use of my money, there are strangers in Athens whom you know ready to use theirs, and one of them, Simmias of Thebes, who actually brought enough for the purpose, and Cebes and many others are ready too. And therefore I repeat, do not shrink from saving yourself on that ground, and do not let what you said in court, that if you went into exile, you would not know what to do with yourself, stand in your way, for there are many places for you to go where you will be welcome. If you choose to go to Thessaly, I have friends there who will make such of you and shelter you from any annoyance of the people of Thessaly. Consider then, Socrates, or rather the time for consideration is past. We must resolve, and there is only one plan possible. Everything must be done tonight. If we delay any longer, we are lost. O Socrates, I implore you not to refuse to listen to me. Phoedo's account of the final scene just before the death of Socrates, in an answer to another question from Echecrates, Phaedo replied, I will try to tell you the whole story. On the previous days, I and the others had always met in the morning at the court where the trial was held, which was close to the prison, and then we would go in to see Socrates. We used to wait each morning until the prison was open, conversing, for it was not opened early. When it was open, we used to go to Socrates, and we generally spent the whole day with him. But on that morning we met earlier than usual, for the evening before we had learned, on leaving the prison, that the ship had arrived from Delos. So we arranged to be at the usual place as early as possible. When we reached the prison, the porter, who generally let us in, came out to us and bade us to wait a little, and not to go in until he himself summoned for us. For the 11 were releasing Socrates from his fetters and giving him directions for his death. In no great while, he returned and bade us enter. So we went in and found Socrates just released. When his wife saw us, she wailed out and cried in her woman's way, This is the last time, Socrates, that you will talk to your friends, or they with you. And Socrates glanced at Crito and said, Crito, let her be taken home. So some of Crito's servants led her away, weeping bitterly and beating her breast, as it was about sunset. And the servant of the 11, after bidding Socrates farewell, gave him the instructions as how to take the poison, and then handed it to him. Socrates took the cup and drank the poison cheerfully, and then walked about until his legs felt heavy. And when he had laid down, he made his last request to Crito in the following words, I owe a cock to Alcephus. Do not forget to pay it. By this time, the poison took effect, and he passed away. The doctrines of Socrates, which is the doctrine of nous, mind or intelligent cause, in order to account for God and creation, he is credited with the teleological premise. Whatever exists for a usual purpose is work of an intelligence. This doctrine of the supreme good, the sonum bonum, is equated both with happiness and knowledge. This, however, is not merely actutia, which depends upon external conditions and accidents of fortune, but is a well-being which is conditioned by good action. This is an attainment in which man becomes godlike through self-denial or external needs, and the cultivation of the mind. For happiness comes not through the perishable things of the external world, but through the things that endure, which are within us. The doctrines of opposites and harmonies, odd and even, are the elements of numbers. One is definite, but the other is unlimited, and the unit is the product both of odd and even. Hence, the universe consists of opposites, the finite and the infinite, the male and the female, the odd and the even, the left and the right. Harmony is the union of opposites. The purpose of philosophy is the salvation of the soul, whereby it feeds upon the truth congenial to its divine nature, and thus escapes from the wheel of rebirth and finally attains consummation with the unity of God. There is a realm of true reality which is above the world of sense. To this soul aspires. The doctrine of self-knowledge, know thyself, the mysteries required as a first step, the mastery of the passions, which made room for the occupation of unlimited powers. Hence, as a second step, the neophyte was required to search within himself for the new powers which had taken possession of him. The Egyptians consequently wrote on their temples, "Man, know thyself." There was a suspicion that Socrates was also engaged in the study of astrology and geology, and that he taught these subjects, for in his defense before the Athenian judges, he stated that the more formidable of his accusers tried to persuade them with lies that one, Socrates, a wise man, was speculating about the heavens and about things beneath the earth, and that he was capable of making worse appear the better reason. The suspicion is further supported by the indictment brought against Socrates, and which reads as follows: Meletus, the son of Meletus, of Demi-Pithys, on his oath, bringing the following accusations against Socrates, the son of Sophroniscus, of the Demi-Alopeci. Socrates commits a crime by not believing in the gods of the city and by introducing new divinities. He also continues a crime by corrupting the youth. There is still a third source from which the suspicion arose that Socrates engaged also in astrology and geology. This was the caricature of Socrates, published by Aristophanes, and in his comedies, The Clouds, as follows: Socrates is a miserable recluse who speaks a great deal of absurd and amusing nonsense about physics and declares that Zeus is dethroned. The rotation reigns in his stead, and that the new divinities are air, which holds the earth suspended, ether, the clouds, and tongue. He professes to possess the power of Belial, which enables him to make the worse appear the better reason, and his teaching caused children to beat their parents. There are two circumstances in the life of Socrates which demands our attention. A, he is said to have been completely unknown up at the age of 40, and B, to have lived a life of poverty. These circumstances point to secrecy in training and poverty as conditions of his life, and as such, they coincide with the requirements of the mystery systems of Egypt and her secret schools, whether in the land of Egypt or abroad, which exacted the vows of secrecy and power and poverty from all neophytes and initiates. All aspirants of the mysteries had to receive secret training and preparation, and Socrates was no exception. He alone of the three Athenian philosophers deserves the appellation of a true master mason. Plato was a great coward, and Aristotle was greater still. At the execution of Socrates, Plato fled to Megara, to the lodge of Euclid, and Aristotle, when indicted, fled in exile to Colchis. With reference to this doctrine, we find that it is also credited to Anaxagoras, who is said to have lived between 500 and 430 BC, and who therefore antedated Socrates 469 through 399 BC in expounding it. Secondly, further examination shows that the doctrine of nous is also a direct inference from the doctrine of cognition as credited to Democritus 460 through 360 BC, which is credited with stating that fire atoms are distributed through the universe and that mind is composed of fire atoms. Therefore, it can be inferred, A, that the mind feels or is distributed through the universe, and B, since only light can produce light, then the mind of the universe must have been produced by a mind which is its source. Thirdly, the doctrine of the nous is a doctrine that originated from the ancient mysteries of Egypt, where God Osiris was represented in all Egyptian temples by the symbol of the open eye. This symbol indicated not only sight that transcends time and space, but also the omniscience of God as the great mind which created and which directs the universe. The symbol is carried as a decoration in all modern Masonic lodges and has the same meaning, the doctrine of the supreme good. This doctrine of the supreme good, or sonum bonum, is likewise a very ancient doctrine which takes us back to the Egyptian mysteries. As stated in the books on Greek philosophy by Socrates, it is only in part and consequently a mistaken notion of the original doctrine has resulted. To say that the supreme good is happiness, that happiness is well-being, that well-being is knowledge, and that knowledge is virtue, and the same thing as saying that the supreme good is virtue. In the Egyptian mysteries, however, the concept of the supreme good is expressed as the purpose of virtue, and that it is the salvation of the soul by liberating it from the 10 bodily fetters. This process of liberation is a process of purification, both of mind and body, the former by the study of the philosophy and science, and the latter by the bodily ascetic disciplines. This training was continued from the baptism of water and was subsequently followed by the baptism of fire when the candidate had made the necessary progress. This process transformed man and made him godlike and fitted him for the union with God. The concept of the supreme good, which originally came from the Egyptian mysteries, is the earliest theory of salvation, and Socrates must have derived this doctrine from that source, or indirectly from Pythagoras. The following doctrines are generally admitted as having been derived from the Pythagoreans: transmigration of the soul, the immortality of soul, the tomb of the soul is the body, the doctrines of opposites and harmony. Since doctrines A, B, C, and D originated from the Pythagoreans, and since the Pythagoreans derived them from the Egyptians, then their Egyptian origin, directly or indirectly, becomes evident. From A, the indictment, B, his defense from the Athenian judges, and C, the caricature by Xenophanes in the clouds, we discover that Socrates was suspected of being a student of nature and in introducing new divinities into Athens. Again, it must be stated that under the mystery systems of Egypt, the study of nature was a requirement. And since the Athenians prosecuted and condemned Socrates to death for engaging in this study and spreading the knowledge, they must have regarded the new ideas as foreign or Egyptian origin. The doctrines of self-knowledge, for centuries attributed to Socrates, is now definitely known to have originated from the Egyptian temples, on the outside of which the words "Know thyself" were written. It is evidence that Socrates taught nothing new, because his doctrines are eclectic, containing elements from Anaxagoras, Democritus, Heraclitus, Parmenides, and Pythagoras, and finally have been traced to the teachings of the Egyptian mystery systems. The importance of the farewell conversations of Socrates with his pupils and friends at the prison, and examining what took place during the farewell conversations of Socrates with his pupil and friends, at least 5 points should be noted. A. The subject of the conversations. B. The determination of his friends to smuggle him away. C. His refusal to accept liberation. D. His dying request, which was addressed to Crito, whom he asked to pay an important debt for him. E. The value of those conversations in their present form in literature. Now the question arises, what is the meaning and significance of these 5 points? The answers and conclusions are as follows. A. As the subject of conversations dealt with the immortality and salvation of the soul, we at once recognize the fact that this was the central theme of the ancient mysteries, and consequently what Socrates was acquainting with the doctrines. Moreover, when we read that fatal of the doctrines, both of the opposites and recollection, which had advanced in proof of immortality, we are convinced that he must have received his training from the mystery systems of Egypt, in connection with there were hierophants and qualified teachers. B. Secondly, in dealing with the behavior of his friends and their determination to smuggle him away, we are dealing with their attempt to render help to a brother in distress. This was the life that initiates were expected to live, for brotherhood was another great principle upon which the Egyptian mysteries laid emphasis. Evidently, Socrates was a brother initiate of the Egyptian mysteries, since it comprised one universal brotherhood. C. Thirdly, in dealing with the refusal of Socrates to accept liberation, again we are dealing with a type of behavior which singles him out as an advanced initiate of the ancient mysteries of Egypt. In the path to mastery and victory, the mystery system regarded unselfishness or sacrifice as an advanced stage of attainment, which must be accomplished before unlimited power could be bestowed upon the candidate. It is true that Anaxagoras escaped for his life, and in like manner Plato and Aristotle, but this only serves to show that Socrates had reached a higher degree in the mysteries than all of them. This necessitated training, and training center was Egypt. D. Fourthly, with reference to the dying request of Socrates addressed to Crito, in which he asked to pay a certain debt, we again encounter another great ideal essential to the life of an initiate. This is the teaching of the mysteries embraces the exercise of a candidate virtue, justice, a practice which the candidate must adopt in order that his sense of value might also develop. Here again, the actions of Socrates revealed that he was a brother initiate with a high sense of justice and honesty, since he did not wish to die without discharging all his obligations. Certainly, dying request of Socrates reveal him as a loyal member of the mystery systems of Egypt. E. Fifthly, and finally, what value we attach to the literature which deals with the farewell conversations of Socrates with his friends and pupils, since the literature embraces a man whose belief and practices coincide with those of the initiates of the ancient mysteries of Egypt, then we may regard the study of Xenophon's Memorabilia, Plato's Apology, the Phaedo, Euthyphro, Crito, and Timaeus as valuable specimens of literature of the mysteries or Masonic world. Plato is said to have been born at Athens in 427 BC, and that his father's name was Aristo, and his mother's name was Peristion, who was a relative of Solon. Little information is known about his early life and training, but there is a supposition that because his parents were wealthy, he must have had such educational opportunities as were available to a wealthy youth. He is said to have studied the doctrines of Heraclitus under Critolus, and who have been a pupil of Socrates for 8 years. It is also said that he was a soldier. He was 28 years old when Socrates died, and together with the other pupils of Socrates, he fled from Athens to Euclid at Megara for safety. He kept away from Athens for 12 years, during which time it is also said that apart from visiting Euclid, he traveled to southern Italy, where he met the remnant of the Pythagoreans, b. to Syracuse in Sicily, where through Dion he must have met Dionysius, to whom he became a tutor, who subsequently caused him to be sold as a slave, and c. to Egypt. Plato is said to have returned to Athens in 387 BC when a middle-aged man of 40 years, and to have opened an academy and a gymnasium on the western suburbs of Athens, over which he presided for 20 years. He is said to have taught the following subjects: A. Political science, B. Statesmanship, C. Mathematics, D. Dialectics, and it is said that the curriculum was based upon the educational principles advocated in the Republic. There are 36 dialogues, a number of letters which Plato is supposed to have written, but which are disputed and doubted by modern scholarship. A. Grote states that Plato has written only dialogues their bare name. B. Scharchmidt states that only 9 of 36 dialogues are genuine, while C. Aristotle considered that the Platonic dialogues as 9 in number, namely the laws Timaeus, Phaedo, Symposium, Phaedrus, Georgius, Theaetus, Philebus, and the Republic, which he thought are genuine. D. Of the remaining 27 dialogues, some scholars contend that the youthful dialogues should be included with the genuine ones, and these are the Apology, Crito, Enthydemus, Laches, Lysis, and Protagoras. E. Of the remaining 21 dialogues, scholars suggest that those which are not written by Plato must have been written by his pupils. The doctrines attributed to Plato are scattered over a wide area of literature, being found in piecemeal throughout what are called dialogues, but particularly in connection with 1. The theory of ideas and its applications to natural phenomena, which include the doctrines of A. the real and unreal, B. the nous, mind, and C. creation. 2. The ethical doctrines concerning A. the highest good, B. the definition of virtue, and C. the cardinal virtues. 3. The doctrine of the ideal state, whose attributes are compared with the attributes. 3. The doctrines of the ideal state, whose attributes are compared with the attributes of the soul and justice. Following this order, they are as follows: the theory of ideas, the definition of ideas, which may be expressed in the following syllogism: the idea relating its unity, unchangeables, and perfection is the element of reality in a thing. The idea is a concept by which a thing is known. Therefore, a concept by which a thing is known is the element of reality in a thing. It follows also that since the concept or idea of a thing is real, then the concrete thing itself is unreal. And B, the application of theory of ideas to natural phenomena in view of the definition of the idea. 3 doctrines have resulted. A, the doctrine of the real and unreal. The things which we see around us are the phenomena of nature. They belong to the earthly realm. They are only copies of their prototypes. The ideas and noumena which dwell in the heavenly realm. The ideas are real and perfect, but the phenomena are unreal and imperfect. And it is the function of philosophy to enable the mind to rise above the contemplation of the visible copies of ideas and advance to a knowledge of the idea themselves.
We rockin' more powers. Up jumps the boogie to the bang bang boogie. Up jumps the boogie. We rockin' more powers. Up jumps the boogie to the bang bang boogie. Up jumps the boogie to the bang bang boogie. We rockin' more powers. We rockin' more powers. 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 Up jumps the boogie to the bang bang boogie. I cut off your head, nigga. One time for your mind, this is what I said, nigga. You see red, more powers. More powers. More powers. More powers.